We have been looking in the Gospel of Matthew at the beatitudes, those sayings of Jesus, which are found in Matthew chapter 5. In this study, we are going to be looking at verse 4 of chapter 5. And like the last beatitude, I'm going to begin by reading the King James Version, which forms the standard understanding in English. Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, the King James Version. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Now, turning to a modern English translation, we refer to the late Eugene Peterson's translation, the Message. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 4. You're blessed when you feel you've lost what is most dear to you. Only then can you be embraced by the one most dear to you. One of the basic questions that we have to address is whether the Beatitudes, the name that is given to what we find in Matthew 5, verses 1 to 11, are aphorisms for life or something more. One of the fun parts of eating in a North American Chinese restaurant are the fortune cookies after the meal. You find in these cookies cute and fun sayings which do not function as oracles from on high. We don't take this as the fact that God is trying to speak to us. So when we ask, is Jesus giving us aphorisms for life? Is it sort of like those fortune cookies? It is easy to reduce the Beatitudes to this level. So when we read about mourning, we can make it a general truth applicable to anyone suffering from the grief or loss of a loved one. In the larger context of what Jesus talked about throughout his ministry, it is impossible to reduce the Beatitudes to some feel-good statements about life. Mourning then is not to be a reference to a physical death experience, but the reality that happens as we embrace the faith and come and follow Jesus. In fact, we can say that mourning is a precondition to coming to faith. If we do not feel sorry for our sins, then there is no need to turn to God. This is a general truth, but there is a deeper sense to this. Here I am thinking more of adult converts. To convert to faith can be difficult, for the faith experience often means a rejection of what has come to be cherished and dear to a person. Some examples might be a sexual partner, it might be gang membership, or it might be that yearly casino vacation. And in that sense, mourning captures what a person goes through as he or she turns to and accepts Christ. For the knowledge is to accept and turn to Christ is to reject that thing. When we look at popular forms of culture, such as television or movies, what is the great problem for the Christian? If you watch enough of this stuff, you will be desensitized to evil. You will be exposed to public nudity as something that is fine, good, and noble. The intimacy between two people becomes a spectator sport. Violent acts and worse are trivialized. Murder and rape can be presented as a form of entertainment. Now, I'm not saying that we need to only watch entertainment that sugarcoats what our world is like. The danger is that what we see in popular entertainment becomes normal to us. What is sin and what is not is lost to us. I read this beatitude as saying one of the marks of a Christian is a sense of grief for the world around us. The reality is that our world does not like sin. And I suspect that no generation has ever liked the idea that sin is real. If we in the church do not believe in sin, we cease to have a reason to exist. You see, there is no need for the cross or for the resurrection. Now, one point that has to be stressed here is that we are not just talking about grieving for immorality. Churches love to give diatribes about the moral failings of the culture around them. Sin is more than just morality. It is a willful rejection of Jesus' call to follow him, to go where he has called you to. Do we mourn for the sinners in the church? People who love the church but actually refuse to follow where Jesus would take them. A Christian is like Jesus, whose sorrow for sin took him to the way of the cross. And as disciples of his, how can we do any less than take up our cross and follow after him?